What he'll do is he'll sync it with my lips.
Is that
Instead of the hand.
are you doing the noise on the Mac? You know that. You know, like the error noise on older Macs used to be like.
Maybe it is what I'm doing.
Mm.
I just find the noise really funny, and there's a microphone in front of me, so I make dumb noises into the microphone.
Yes, it's funny. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Chip Lunch Podcast here at the Third Space Studio in Sorrel, Kirrawee.
Mm-hmm.
Got it right without saying good job, Joel. Ethan, welcome.
Hey.
Welcome back to Chip Lunch.
Good to be back.
It's good. I feel that we should introduce our guest,
We should.
but I want to say that it is the person I know who has the longest hair.
I don't know anyone with longer hair.
I don't know anyone with longer hair than this person. Would you like to introduce our guest?
Our guest today is Aurelia Fox.
Hello.
Hello.
Cheering noises. Woo! Thanks, man.
That's awesome.
Perfection.
Yes. Welcome to the Chip Lunch Podcast, Aurelia.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm fabulous.
You have just finished the HSC, correct?
I have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's get into that in the podcast because that'll be really cool. We've heard about your schoolies experience before we went press the record button.
Yeah.
But as we always start every episode with two questions.
Mm-hmm.
You've done the HSC, so you should know two.
Catch two. Maths advanced. Yep.
Advanced maths, very good. First question is, how do you like to eat your hot chips?
Okay. I feel like this is a very complex question because if you're going to just a normal hot chip shop, it's got to be just like chicken salt, right?
Boo.
Correct answer.
Yeah. And then, but you can also add a little bit of vinegar if you're feeling a bit spicy.
Oh, vinegar.
Wow,
Yeah.
chicken salt, and we haven't had anyone say vinegar since Bev's episode.
yeah, your grandma.
my grandmother.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But if I'm really getting into it, I mean, I work at Grilled, so hot chips are there.
Yes.
And then you got to get it with chipotle mayo.
Yeah,
I do like that chipotle, mate.
that is very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and that in itself is a controversial topic. I feel like we need to focus on the chipotle mayo because the amount of people that come in asking for chipolate or like chipotle.
Chipotle, or like
it's chipotle.
it says like chipolata, like the
Chipolata.
small
Yeah.
sausages.
Yeah.
No, it's
We don't serve sausages here.
no, it's chipotle. Thank you.
Chipotle. Excellent.
Okay. Well, that's
I am probably now going to call it chipolata because that is way
I
funnier.
like the
And
chipolata
I can see
mayo.
the effect it has on you, and it makes me laugh.
I'm just like it's like
Just fuming.
when people ask for, I'm like, oh yeah, chipotle, yeah, sure thing.
Yeah, it's all about like sliding the correction.
Or
Yeah.
we don't have that.
It's
We have chipotle, but we don't have chipolata.
We don't have chipolata.
Chipolata. Maybe there's just people like trying to put on an accent. I know where it's from. And chipolata.
Chipolata.
like no, don't do that, please.
All right, second
Excellent.
question.
Yeah.
You ask the second question.
Okay, Aurelia, how did you become a Christian?
Oh, this is a great question. I feel like I have like the stereotypical boring Christian kid answer,
No,
but
no,
it's not
everyone
boring.
says that.
But
Yeah,
it's not boring.
It's not boring.
It's like every time I say it's boring, everyone's like, no, it's not boring. So I was raised in a Christian family and, gone to church every week. And I think there's always like called myself a Christian. I don't think there's ever been a time where I haven't known God or haven't like known Jesus as my savior. I think definitely when I got to high school, it was definitely like early high school, started having to like kind of make that myself, like make that faith for myself and start reading the Bible, praying, really, doing that all independent of my family and my parents. I think at the same time I also started kind of doing light leading and getting a bit more into ministry. So that was very helpful, I think, because I was like having to teach children and I was like, oh, well, this is kind of solidifying what I believe and what I know to be true. So I think that's kind of,
And you also got to know it yourself
yeah.
to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
That was a very quick story. Did you go through it quickly because you didn't want to get into the detail?
I mean, there's just not much detail. I can go into more detail, but I
Yeah.
feel like that's kind of it.
Well, it's always a little bit of a different pattern sometimes when if you've grown up in a Christian household or not. Like, for example, I didn't. You would know that Ethan has. You have. Is there a time when, or there are times where you realised, oh, I need to take on? You mentioned talking about doing it for yourself rather than your family.
Yeah.
When did that happen, and why do you think that happened?
I think that probably towards the end of primary school and beginning of high school. I think that was kind of, I didn't go to a Christian primary school or anything, but I think it was very sheltered. Most of my friends there were Christians and would go to church.
Mm-hmm.
And then, getting into high school, I was like, oh, wait, this isn't just the normal. I was like, me with like my one Christian friend at school at the time. So I was like, oh, okay. And I think that's when I was really like, oh yeah, okay, this is probably something that I need to actually, it's not just something that happens because I'm in Christian family or I go to church. I'm like, this is actually something that I have to like believe for myself.
So it forced you to really delve into why you believed what you thought you at least believed?
Yeah.
So when you get to high school, you're like, oh, people are different.
Yeah.
Like it's not just accepted all the time.
Yeah, it's like, oh, there are actually different options. And I was like, why? It's like, why have I chose this?
Yeah.
Like,
and most of the options in the Southern Shire where we are just no option. Like don't take any option. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what primary school did you go to?
I went to Yowie Bay.
Yowie Bay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is all in the Sutherland Shire if anyone's listening to it outside the Sutherland Shire.
Yeah.
And then, so what high school did you go to?
I went to Caringbah High School.
Right.
Which we've heard talk about on Alana's episode.
Yep.
Was anybody
Same
else
school.
that we've had go to
I
Caringbah?
think so. Not that I can think
Not
of.
that not off the top of my head.
Nikki went there for a bit, I think.
Yes.
And then she moved.
She did.
Oh, there you
Fun
go.
facts.
Yes,
Thank
she
you.
and she talked about that in yes.
Good job.
Yeah.
COVID with leaves. Is that
COVID.
Nikki?
That's
Who we're talking about. Okay.
That's who we're talking
The
about.
COVID with leaves, pain sip.
Yeah.
Nikki.
Pain
Oh,
and
she
sip
went
Nikki.
to Caringbah.
Yeah.
So if you're going to Caringbah and you only had one, you said you only one Christian friend.
Yeah, like straight, like year 7,
Mm-hmm.
I was like the Christian kid in my class. I was probably a little bit too enthusiastic at the time, as in I would take stacks of the youth cards and hand them out to everyone, like everyone in the oval, everyone in my class. And actually I was reflecting, one of my friends at the time who then I wasn't as close with during the middle of high school, but kind of came back towards the end. She was like, yeah, you scared me. She was like, you scared me with like all of this youth talk. And I was like, oh, okay. So maybe I was a little bit intense, but I guess that's the way to be. So I feel like I had like there was one other person that was like super Christian, like kind of same vibe as me. She would hand out her pamphlets.
Is that why you handed them out so much? You're like, I've got to beat this person.
Yeah. Well, no, we had different crowds, so we weren't like actually in the same group. But I was like, it's like one other chick out there, and we'd go to our Christian lunchtime group together. So that was fun. But that was
Very
kind
cool.
of it. And then I feel like I had other friends that kind of came to youth and left and then came back, and then so I was like, there's more Christians in my year, but like not necessarily that I was friends with.
Okay. And what drove you to hand out all the youth flyers,
So
postcards?
I was just, why not? And I had the best time being at youth on Friday nights. I was like, everyone needs to have fun with me. I was like, come, it's fun. Like we had a decent amount of people that came. Yeah.
It was awesome.
It's great. It's a great time.
With Caringbah is a selective high school, right?
Yes.
Did that affect your faith at all in terms of like, there's obviously pursued a lot of academic achievement there. Did that influence you at all, or was it harder being a Christian in that environment?
I don't think it made that much of a difference, particularly like not in terms of the kids there, because I feel like everyone was like super respectful. So it was like the people who weren't Christians were like, oh, that's chill, like for the most part. It was always like a bit interesting from the teachers' perspective, because like they were a little bit harder to deal with than the kids.
Really?
Because they'd just be like, religion is just a holiday from reality.
Wow. Is that
Someone
is that a
actually
direct quote?
That's a direct quote
Really?
from one of my
Okay,
teachers.
don't name your teacher. What subject was it?
That was actually society and culture. I dropped that.
Straight after.
Yeah. I was like, no.
Wow.
But yeah, so there was like a little bit more like
That's interesting.
kind of digs from the teachers, I would think. Because like the students didn't care. Like none of my classmates were really like, oh, she's a Christian. Like, she's dumb. Like, I didn't really get any of that. But yeah.
What's your favourite subject then? Because you're selective, you've got to be pretty good at a particular subject at least.
I'm a humanities person. Dropped science as soon as I could. I love English, but I don't know if that would be my favorite. I really liked modern history.
Me too.
That was, I didn't like the exams, but I really liked the content of that.
What did you study in modern history? Oh, so you go modern history from year 9, year 10?
So I did that in year 11 and 12.
11 and 12.
And then, because I'm like, year 7 to 10 history was kind of just like all over the place.
Yeah. It was not a specific.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was like you do like kind of 2 lessons a fortnight kind of thing. So it was just like not heaps consistent, but yeah.
What did you study in modern history? What eras?
What did we do? We did like lots of World War II, conflict in the Pacific, kind of vibes. We did like Nazis.
Yeah, we did Nazi Germany. Yep.
All that good stuff. We did US civil rights, and like US during the Great Depression as well. So
did you have an American teacher? There's a lot of US involvement in there.
No, we were the first. She's been teaching the same thing for like 15 years, and she was like, "We're just gonna spice it up for you guys."
Wow.
I was like, "Great,
Ready to go.
Yeah.
do
Put some
it."
vinegar on my chips. Let's go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Chipolata.
Chipolate.
Yeah, put that on. Chipolate sounds like a Mexican
Latte?
latte, like a Mexican coffee drink.
Yeah. The chipolate.
Yeah, have a chipolate, please.
Soy milk though.
Soy milk.
Soy chipolate.
Soy chipolate.
Do you drink soy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Not because
You've
I
hurt me
can't
with
drink normal milk, just because I can drink soy.
Oh, soy.
Wow.
That's rough. Okay, you've hurt my heart twice now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I've had chicken salt and now soy.
We're
Right.
really struggling over here, Joel.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain going your way.
I'm battling very hard. Anyway, but having said that, we talked about modern history a lot. But you're only 18, so everything's modern history to you at the moment. What what about the later years of high school? What was good being a Christian? What was difficult being a Christian?
I mean, towards senior years, that was COVID. So our Christian lunchtime group stopped, which was sad.
You've been going to that since year 7?
Yep, so I started going to that in year 7. Up until year 10, I would go like half lunch times because I had SRC on at the same time. So I'd go to SRC for the first half of lunch, and the second half of lunch I'd go to what was then called Generator. It's called Generator. And I'd go to that for the second half, which was like the talk kind of vibe.
SRC, Student Representative Council.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's
Just
it.
checking.
Yeah.
Good.
And yeah, so that was like 7 to 10, year 10. It was always run by like the year 12s. But we didn't have any, like when I was in year 10, there weren't any year 11s. So then when the year 12s did the HSC, me and like the 2 other people in my year that went started kind of leading that one. And then COVID in year 11, so that stopped. And then we came back to school and we were like, let's start it up again. And then...
This is like towards the end of 2020, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, no, that would be... Yes, 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the principal was like, no.
Why?
Well, it started off being as like we're not allowed to do any groups where the years mix.
Oh yeah.
And that was a COVID thing.
That was a rule
thing.
across all the schools, right?
Yeah. And I was like, sweet, like I wasn't doing any debating, I wasn't doing any SRC or any of that. And I was like, chill. And then like one by one, all of those activities started going back and I was like, So then we were like, how about this group? And he was like, no. We were like, And like I knew that at his old school, because he only came when I was in year 9. And our principal before that was like super devoted Christian guy.
Really?
Yeah. So like super enthusiastic about our lunchtime group.
Also probably explains why the vibe in the school was it's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Definitely. So then this new principal, he was like, he'd gotten rid of scripture completely at his old school. And then he brought across the deputy that was at that school with him that also helped him. So it was like and then like our other deputy who was a Christian had kind of like taken a lot of time on leave. So we'd gone from having like 2 out of 3 of our executives being really, really strong Christians to having kind of one who was there sometimes, but only part-time. And yeah, so I feel like this was like senior year vibes. And it's just like, no, you're not allowed to make a group. And we were like, we will not take no for an answer.
That's awesome.
And so by this point, it was me and then 2 other girls in my year. And then Bianca, who comes here from the year below me.
Yeah.
And then another guy from her year, because we were like, let's get everyone on board. So we went, and when that one deputy who was a Christian, he was at school on like half the days a week. So we went and ambushed him in the office because we didn't have didn't have a teacher supervisor, which I probably should have mentioned, because like all of the teachers that we had left. Or then like we had the teacher who had been supervising us was told he wasn't allowed to supervise us anymore.
Supervising the Christian group.
Yeah, because you have to have a teacher in the room kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you have to have a teacher in the room?
Just for supervision.
Yeah, just legal stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're like, great. So we'd send out emails to other teachers and being like, is anyone able to? It was like, great if you're a Christian, but if you're not, we just need you to sit in the room with us. But like we hadn't gotten any interest back, so we went and bombarded this deputy, and I walked in and I was like, so we're here to start up this group again. We can't find a teacher to do it. And he was like, what day are you thinking of doing it? And we were like, well, you're here like Monday, Tuesdays, so
one of them.
So Monday, because I have SLC on Tuesday. And
so this is, you're trying to get the full Christian group and then the SLC.
Yeah, because I was like, by this point I think I hadn't quite been elected captain, but I was like in the running for it. So I was like, I've got to make sure that I'm able to go to SRC on Tuesdays. But I was like, Monday.
Man, you work in the political scene at school.
Oh, it was... Sorry, I've been...
You know this story.
I know many, and I haven't been chiming in because I know many of these stories. And they're very excellent.
I'm loving it. Keep going.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
And he was like, I'll do it. And I was like, sweet. So then...
that was unexpected, you reckon? You weren't...
Yeah, well, I was like... I wasn't necessarily expecting him to do it, but I was expecting him to be able to find someone to do it. He was just like, yeah, I'll be there. Like, great. He was like, here's my personal like mobile number, like call me if anything changes, and we can start next term, because this was like only like 2 or 3 weeks. So he still, because he then had to take it to the principal, because it still had to get approved. But by that point we were kind of off the hook. So I was like, great, don't have to do that, because I was having frequent meetings with the principal. So I was like, I don't want to be too like, but yeah, so it was good. Then
what was the principal's response? Like when he found out that...
He never really said anything about it to me. All I know is that it happened and that we were allowed to start the group again. So he did agree at some point.
He's like, I've been outwitted here. I've been outmaneuvered.
Yeah.
That's
I was
pretty
like,
cool.
Went straight to the executive. I was like, he's not listening to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was good. So we got our group back up. I tried to get in, we did get in contact with Scripture Union New South Wales to get like a curriculum for our group, so that way we'd be able to pass it on to the people in the year below us, because at that point it was just like me and the other chicks in my year that were just like writing talks on a roster that we'd made for things that we'd decided. But we were like, let's put something like...
Yeah, put a bit of structure in place.
Yeah, structure, and so that way it's easier. We can like train up the people in the year below us, which was great. And except, so we were able to use like one of the curriculums that they had, but then we went into lockdown again. And so then same thing happened, and no more groups. So we were doing like a little bit of like, we just send in like little verses or things. We had a Microsoft Teams, so we just like send in little things being like, oh, praying for everyone today, like kind of vibe. But that was kind of it. And then we went back to school, but weren't able to set it up again because the same restrictions, and then HSE. So but I'm in contact still with the people in the year below me.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we changed the name to SALT.
Oh.
Because we didn't like the name Generator. Like it's not happening. So we changed the name to SALT. And yeah, keen to help the year 10s and 11s who are now going to be 11s and 12s.
Was there anything in particular from being, so you didn't necessarily run that group for ages, and there was some interruptions, but in amongst all of that, did you learn anything in particular that you took away from that?
Well, I think there are some observations that I made. I think our church is very good at doing the intergenerational kind of vibe, because I'd be in the room and there'd be other people in year 11 and 12 who would rather die than talk to the year 7 kids.
Right.
And I was like, right, okay. I was like, this is something that we can work on. I was like, let's get a little bit of this happening.
There's a big spread of ages in that group.
Yeah, we had about 28 kids, I think was our like record number, but we had pretty much, because we run on a fortnight timetable, so you'd have like maybe 23, 25 kids one week and then like 27, 28 the next week with like free periods and things. And I think also, just talking to other people and outside of your group, I think it highlighted the importance of that for me. Because I feel like, here we've always just done that. And I think,
you mean that Sorrel Bible Church?
Like just being brought up in this, it's like that's just the normal, but it's not for everyone. And so I'd see the year 7 kids in the playground and I'd be able to stop and talk to them and say like, how are you going? And then, like I think eventually as we went on with that group, I'd see other people in the playground doing the same thing. Like I'd walk past and there was the year 10s and the 8s from the group talking, and I was
those younger crew would love that.
Yeah.
Oh,
like you imagine if you were in year 7 and a year 12, year 11 person goes, hey, how you going?
I had not as much Braden because I didn't know Braden as well, but I had Keegan randomly coming up to me, and I was and we've talked about him on previous podcasts. We talked about him on Brad's, and I think Braden's mentioned him before, but it was that kind of thing. And when you're in like junior high and you're looking up to these year 12s who are on fire about Jesus and wanting to actually invest in you and talk to you, it's such a big deal. So that's really, really cool that you were able to do that.
Like I know I had Alana, because she was she would have been in year 12 when I was in year 8.
So Alana's been on this pod.
So she, like, I don't know if it was as much because of Generator, which was on at the time, or if it was just because we had this connection through Sorrel Bible. But I was like, all my friends thought I was pretty cool as well. Like when year 12s would come up to me and say, how you going? They'd be like, oh, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
What was, I'm really encouraged by the way, like you just kept trying to make sure your group was there, right?
Yeah.
But what was your sense of like God's hand over that situation?
Oh, I mean, I think I'd always pray like before going to school, and I'd be like, yes, like God, like, you know, if I can just talk to one person about Jesus today, that's going to be epic. And like we did the same thing like with the group. It was we'd meet together on like Wednesday recess or whatever it was, Thursday recess I think, and like we'd pray separate from the lunchtime group. Like the leaders would get together. We had the teacher who'd been supervising us that wasn't able to anymore. He'd still come in to our little meetings and pray for that group. So it was just like, you know, and we did have, like we had at one point when I was in year 11, so last year, we had like maybe a group of 10 year 10 boys come in. I think one of them was a Christian. Yeah. The rest weren't. And we're like, how good.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And they just like, I mean, they were asking lots of questions.
They're year 10 boys.
Yeah. Questions that, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say I had the answers to, but that was okay. We were just like, love the enthusiasm. Like, come back next week and, you know, we'll have some answers for you, hopefully.
Yeah. I do wonder, like, if having those boys come into that environment to, like, helps them feel valued as well, like, just listen to their questions and...
Yeah.
Like, it's a space for discussion about it, not really like, we have all the answers. And, I think if you're projecting that attitude as well, like, oh, come back next week and I'll hopefully have the answer for you. But I think that makes it show that you're still figuring out too. But also, like, it's it's a relatable thing. It's like, oh, we're all figuring it out, especially in high school, right?
Yeah.
Because you just,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think especially since like, I remember like being a Christian kid in high school was really cool because you'd get questions like that and you wouldn't know the answers more than half the time. But one of the really cool things about being connected in with a church is that you can, and particularly Soli's, which has that really cool intergenerational vibe of like actually walking up to a youth leader and going, hey, I just got asked this week. Like, what does that mean? And if they don't know, like we can talk about it together and brainstorm stuff and figure out responses. And I think that stuff's always really fun. And particularly like being in a Christian family as we are,
that's
like that's particularly easy. Like your parents are very clever, and I'm sure would have many answers that you could have stolen.
And did.
Yeah.
And did.
I was going to say, it would have been a helpful environment to be in when these year 10 boys are asking you questions. You're like, oh, I can go back to my parents and see what they think first.
Yeah.
Is you taking the lead in making that Christian group happen, and also you talked about SRC, and also did you get school captain?
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Is leadership something that you're really keen on?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to rule the world.
I like leading.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like my family is much the same. Like, so I had my sister Matilda's in the year above me.
Mm-hmm.
My brother Riley is the year above her. So we're consecutive. We've all been in SRC. I think Riley started SRC when he was in year 10. So he was 10, 11, 12. He was a prefect in year 12. Matilda and I both started SRC from year 7 all the way to year 12. The two of us are both school captain. Riley was like the stage crew manager from like year 8, and then as soon as he stepped down from that, I took over. So we just fully monopolised the school. Like Mum was president of the music support group because like all of us were in like 5 ensembles,
Right.
like at all times. So it was just, captain of the debating team. Like any opportunity I could get, I'm like, let's rule this school.
And so is that because the rest of your family did that, or is it something that you're pretty excited and passionate about?
I mean, it definitely started as something that the rest of my family did, but that was like even in primary school, like just from the moment that I could, they were just like, hey, Aurelia, go do this. I think, semester 1, kindergarten, SRC, right there. That was...
Voted in SRC.
That was me.
Yeah.
So, but then I was like, then I kind of was like, oh, actually, no, I like this. I like this because I feel like I just like being able to serve people. So I'm not like the listen to me and you must do everything I say leader. That's not the vibe.
That's not real leadership anyway.
No. As Mum likes to tell me when we talk about this, it's leading by example. That's the leadership style that you want to have.
You sounded heaps like your mum there.
Yeah.
That was a really good, like, tonally. And anyway, so just as a fun little leadership anecdote, I'm not going to share it. I'm going to ask you to share it because I will not tell it justice at all. But you at one point this year wanted to get, was it the trials moved or trials changed?
Yeah.
So for those of you who are, we don't have any. Do we have any US listeners anymore?
Let's just say we do.
We will after this podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly right.
Once the leader of the free world is...
So the HSC is something we do in year 12. There is an end of year exam and there's lots of stuff that builds up to that exam. And one of these things that build up to it is these trial exams that are worth quite a bit. And because of COVID, it all went a bit haywire. And I'm just going to...
Yeah. So
you take over.
Yeah.
We were in lockdown. We were doing online school. So our trials had already been pushed back because they were like, you'll be back at school. We'll push them back. We were like, okay. But no one actually thought they were ever going to happen. We were just like, a lot of people lost motivation for their study. And that's just how it goes being online. But then lockdown was extended, great, longer online. We're like, well, what about trials? What's happening with these? And then they just got pushed back a little bit more. We're like, okay, sure. And then it was like extended even more or something. We're like, what's happening with trials? And they're like, online trials. And we were like, that's actually not going to happen. I was like,
no.
It's a no from me. No online trials. And we were just like, it's not fair. Because like people have all sorts of like home situations and like access to technology and all of these things. Yep. Also, we just didn't want to do them. So me and the other school captain, we had lots of meetings. Like even during lockdown, we were like meeting with the executive like twice a week discussing this. But we were like, okay, this is our proper plan. We'd told them we want to cancel trials. Like we don't want to do them. We want to get our trials so that way we can do them as practice, but we don't want them to count for anything. And they were like, okay, we're hearing you. And we're going to take it to like all of the head teachers and stuff. And then we had some sneaky insight into the head teachers and they were like, no, he actually didn't bring that up. Like you're still doing trials. We're like, we're actually not doing that. So then once again, we had another meeting, except this time we got all the prefects in and we called and we spent 2 hours. We wrote like a 2-page letter.
A manifesto.
Mm-hmm. We'd made a, what's it called? Like a quiz, not a quiz thing, but like a
survey?
Survey, there we go, of the year. Getting in all of the responses of them and showing that what everyone wanted was no trials, but still the practice opportunity. So we included the answers of that survey. I got the letters from other schools, mostly other selective schools that were ranked above us, showing, hey, this is what they're doing. We should do what they're doing.
So like James Roos and stuff like that?
Yeah. So like, I don't know if we use James Roos, but like there are a handful.
There's a few selectives,
Yeah. So we're getting like all of their schools.
So much data.
Letters, yeah. Like I attached like at least 6 things to this email, and then I sent it to all of the head teachers. And I was like, yeah, because they're the ones who get the say. Because I was like, they're the ones who have to, do the whole exams. And it was great. And then
are these all your ideas?
Or me and the other captain. Yeah, we were like, let's.
It's
do
very impressive.
Right?
I'm very impressed.
It was good, and then we got what we wanted. So we had
making change.
We had practice trials, but they didn't count for anything, which was like great because I was like, I don't want to, because like they're the ones that like determine your rank going into the external exams. So I was like, I'm actually quite happy with where my ranks are at the moment. I'm like, we don't really need to change that. So it was good.
Are you going to be a politician?
No.
It feels like you are. So the stuff that you're doing, it sounds like you're going to be a politician.
The other school captain, I reckon he will be.
He will be?
Yeah, he loves politics, but I can't because I need everyone to like me. And so that's not possible in politics.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
What was the question I was going to ask you? Tell us about the impact of COVID and lockdowns and stuff on school, and then going into HSC, because I think this is a little bit of an unknown thing for people that are older. Is that I've heard reports from people doing HSC and also uni online. It's just demoralising. Yeah,
that kind of sums it up. It was pretty rough. I think when it happened in year 11, we were like, this is pretty awful, but we were like, at least we're not in year 12. And that's kind of what we kept being told. We were like, well, at least you're not the people in the year above you. And it was just like all figuring out how to actually learn online. But also you just like, you don't get to see your friends. You don't get to talk to people.
That social interaction.
Yeah, so that was like pretty rough. And I think like also at my school, a lot of people at my school have trouble with like interacting socially and stuff. So that's
because they're very academically focused. And
yeah. So then coming back from that was extra hard for those kind of people.
Yeah.
So the people who like thrive from social interaction really found it hard during the lockdown, but were so happy to be back. And then it kind of swapped, and it's like quite a dynamic range, but it's also really clear who those people are. And then probably going into like year 12 when it happened, that was like. It was like we kind of missed a lot of the basics in year 11, but we were like, it's fine. Year 12, it's good. It was like we missed our first year 12 camp. We were like, so our last high school camp, we were like, small price to pay. Small price to pay for like having a nice normal year.
Yeah.
And then
Alas.
And then came Delta.
And then alas, and we went back into lockdown, and that was harder. And we had a lot of people being like, well, at least it's not as bad as last year because you know how to. We know now we have the systems in place. We know how to learn online, and we were like,
This is what the teachers were telling you.
Yeah, yeah, teachers. My sister, who was in the year before us,
Yes.
she was like, well, at least you know how to do it. And then kind of the weeks went on, and eventually we were online for a whole term. And I was like, the people who think that last year had it worse, it's getting a little bit embarrassing now.
Yeah.
It was July to November, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
pretty intense.
It was a full school term.
Yeah.
And more.
And
And
more.
more. Yeah.
So it was like, I think we had like 16 weeks or something.
That sounds right.
Yeah, so it was very long.
Yeah.
I know for me personally, motivation, downhill. Very, very downhill.
Why though?
Oh,
Like, I just
because-
want to find out why you think that.
Because I was by myself and I thrive off social interaction.
Yeah.
So I was like, and I was also the person that like would go to the library at 7:30 every morning, because I was like, structure was good. So I was able to get like an hour and a half of studying in the morning, and then on Wednesday afternoons I would stay like 4 hours in the afternoon, and so like when
That's at school, sorry.
yeah, at the school library. So it was like when you didn't have that, I was just like, oh, I can do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I was like, why? I was like, I could join my maths call from my bed. Like I didn't, but I could have.
Yeah.
And so I would just like, and I also have a spinny chair at home, and you don't have spinny chairs in classrooms, and I would just spin in circles for like all of my classes. I would just sit there spinning. Like I got so distracted. And like I have a dog at home, so I would just like every like 10 minutes I'd be like, oh, I've got to hug the dog. And I was also just like, oh well, like it's fine. Also, there was a decent amount of time when people thought the HSC was going to be cancelled. So I was like, oh well. I was like,
Well, they were going to at least delay it or something, wasn't it?
yeah. So it did get pushed back
Yeah, it did get delayed a little
a
bit.
month,
Yeah.
and then that even made the motivation.
Yeah, that would have crushed it.
because people were
Like
like,
another month of this.
yeah. So it was like people were like, oh, more time to study. I was like, more time to procrastinate and further
Amen.
lose motivation.
Yep.
But it was okay. We got there in the end. We had like 2 weeks before the start, or maybe 3 weeks before the start of the HSC. It was like, oh, it's actually happening. I should probably like start to knuckle down. So then I did, and it was okay. We got through it.
Was the number one thing that you missed in social interaction?
Yeah.
It's for you, but I think
me.
it's also for people that possibly don't need as much social interaction. They still need
Yeah.
interaction, hey?
Yeah.
And so that's possibly where a lot of it is a flying bug. Possibly where a lot of the demoralization comes from is this like you're alone. You're almost like alone, and you're doing one of the most people build it up to being one of the most stressful things in your lifetime at this particular period of your life. Like it would have been hard.
Yeah, so it was like I could go on walks with some of my friends, like 2 of my friends. But I'm like, because my friends are also from all over the place, like,
Especially with Carrybar being selective school, right?
yeah, so I'm like, most of my friend group lives in the St. George area. So
Oh, really?
so we literally couldn't see each other.
Out of the LGA.
Oh, because they locked down the LGAs.
Yeah. So
Wow,
it was
that's
like
hard.
proper, like not able to see them at all legally.
There's an interesting thing about COVID, isn't it? It was like, oh, well, it's easy enough to stay home because you've got the internet, you can watch Netflix, you can do all this kind of stuff. Oh, you can chat online, but it's still missing the thing of what we're doing right now is we're across from a table or wherever you're hanging out at school is that like, we need that. We need to be in proximity to one another to be able to get stuff out of each other.
Especially with year 12, like, and like the best bit about year 12 is one of the hardest, but also one of the best years of high school that people often go through.
Yeah.
Because often, and I'm not talking for everyone, but often all the social stuff kind of gets like, there's a lot less social issues by the time you get to year 12. A lot.
Do you agree,
like,
Aurelia?
from stuff I've heard, like, and stuff I've experienced, and people I've chatted to, everyone kind of ends up just being mates, especially with the HSC, because we're like, okay, we're all just suffering together, right? And like then it's like our year when I went through school, we had a handball tournament begin, and there was a ranking system of like who was the best at handball. And this was not just our group. There was like 4 groups of dudes involved playing handball together every lunchtime and trying to up each other. And it was really fun. Like it wasn't a, if you're at the bottom, you suck. It was a
competitive thing.
Yeah. And it was really fun. But it was one of those examples of like, I played more handball in year 12 than I did year 12 stuff. And that was great. Like, and that, because that's part of that experience. And so that's really hard to have lost that in particular.
Is there pressure, like in terms of what your family had done before, to perform academically as well?
Like not really, but also a little bit. Yeah. I mean, like my family's like, no, whatever is fine. But it's also like there's a lot of academic pressure from the school as well.
Yeah,
so
okay.
it's not
being
just,
a selective again.
Yeah. So it's just like.
So if you've got that coming down one side, but then you've got knowing that you want to do reasonably well in your HSC, but then in the middle is no one's ever done HSC like this before, whether it's online and stuff. That would have made it really hard too, right?
Yeah, so it's just like, oh, what am I supposed to do? And then you just don't know, so you just don't do anything.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, throwing in our English terms, that was the collective human experience that was faced by year 12. And yeah, just like, and there was no structure, so there's no like community, no structure.
You don't have the structure of school, turn up at this time, go to this class at this time.
Yeah. And there was the, whole like, oh, this is what we would have been doing today. Like today would have been our graduation or today would have been our Jamboree trip or like all of the things that like we didn't get to do. So it was like.
I think there's a lot of, so this is a big question and it's feel free to just not really go into it much, and we may have already talked about it, but I think it's really easy to focus on, oh, here's the stuff we missed out on, because a lot of that built up and created the stuff. But one of the things I want to think about is something like a lot of us older people that haven't been through that is, I'm included in us older people, is that like it's obviously had an effect on your age group. In ways more than just missing Jamboree. Like there would have been some pretty potentially intense or potentially, a lot of potentially mental stuff going on. Is there anything you've noticed or reflected on or seen or experienced? I've made that as open-ended as possible to be to give you as much out as you would like, or otherwise. But is there any, what do you think the effects of this are or may be into the future?
Oh, like if we're talking mental health wise kind of vibe, I think it affected a lot of people like pretty drastically. And I think that is like a result of the kind of stuff that we were talking about like, not having the kind of social interaction and not having the structure and routine. Like I know for me, I was like, my anxiety got pretty bad during the time because I was like, what am I meant to do?
Well, and just to jump off that, my anxiety was really bad when I was in high school, at the HSC. So to do it in that situation would probably be even worse. Yeah,
and it was just like, oh, like where do you go? And I know a lot of my friends also like got pretty sick. Like they were, like I know a couple people in my year that were like hospitalized like at the time.
Wow.
So it was like very intense. And I think if I talk about like lasting impacts, I feel like I know a lot of people who have had kind of issues, and it's obviously like we only finished the HSC like a couple of weeks ago. Like it had
2 weeks ago now. Like
what's the date? 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So it hasn't even been that long. But it's like I think the stuff that's kind of come up and stemmed from like the last 2 years of normal stress and normal anxiety that's just kind of been heightened because of the circumstances. And I think it's probably going to stick with like a lot of people for a long time. Because it's like mental health isn't something that will just go away like normally.
You've got to work on it.
Yeah. And I feel like particularly because now we'll be going into such like another big time of change, like going from school to uni, which is like completely different. Like even the jump from primary school to high school is like, it's like the same thing. You're just
it's a natural progression.
Yeah. Whereas I think like going to uni or going to TAFE or doing like whatever you do after school, I feel like that's an even bigger kind of jump and change. So I feel like that'll be really interesting to see how kind of people like my year, the year above me, even like the people in the year below, all kind of like deal with that kind of shift. But
Are you concerned about that? Moving from, I'm guessing you're planning to go to uni?
yeah, planning on going to uni. I'm not too stressed about it. I feel lucky in this sense because I have 2 older siblings that are so close in age. So I always get the little preview of what life is going to be like next.
And they're pretty close, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm looking at even studying the same area as my sister. So I kind of have a decent idea of what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So I know for me it's not too much of a stress, but I know like a lot of my friends who are like the eldest children or don't really have anyone older that they can actually talk to about this kind of vibe, who like definitely find it a lot more stressful, like the kind of daunting thought of this transition period. But yeah.
How did your faith help you through that?
Oh, I mean, I think it's like such a big part of my life that it's like no matter what, that didn't change. It was like
foundational kind of thing.
Yeah. So it was like even in the midst of everything that was changing and everything that was new and what people had never seen, I was like, well, I still have God and like Jesus still loves me no matter what, and he still died for me. So even though I slept in today or I didn't pay attention in all 4 of my classes or something, I was like,
or I didn't do the amount of study I wanted to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, God still loves me and like unconditionally, like regardless. So I think that definitely helped. And like even like right through the HSC, like it was like I was stressing, like I'd be driving in the car or like having a little meltdown before one of my exams, and it'd just be like my parents would stop in the car and they'd pray. Be like, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Sick. So I feel like, it's just been one of those foundational things. It's like, no matter what changes, it's like, I've got God. So
that's something I found really hard in the HSC, is I think I forgot that.
Yeah.
And because I probably wasn't reasonably that formed as a Christian at that time. Yeah. And I think like if I was, then I would be a lot calmer and I'd be able to perhaps even perform better in my exams than I did, because I was just an anxious wreck when I look back on it, like just like, and like cramming so much because I was anxious, I procrastinated so much, and then I was cramming because I have to do well in the exam. And I remember my last exam was business studies, and I think I studied for like a day and a half before, and that's the only study I'd done for business studies from the entire like break leading up to the exams. So was there anything like that for you, or is it just you were a bit more? Sounds like you were a bit more structured than I was.
Not really. Because I left my study pretty late, and also like for kind of up until year 12 beginning of year 12, I was just like cruising on natural ability, and I was like, we're just gonna hope.
That was me up to year 10. Yep.
Yeah, so I was like, we're just hoping that it's gonna stay this way. Except then everyone else who'd done the same thing like kicked it up, so I was like, oh damn it, now I have to as well. But yeah, I only really started studying like properly like just before the beginning of exams. And so I had like a little thing that a little timer that I'd keep track of how much I studied for each subject. And then it would get to like the first exam. Like I wouldn't study for anything else apart from my next exam. Yeah. But that meant that like my last couple I'd like, or like I had like the 2 English exams on like the Tuesday and Wednesday. But then I had like my modern history exam on the Friday. So there's a lot of content to learn that you can't do in like a day and a half.
Yeah, like modern history, you got to know all the dates and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yep. So I was just like, I think that was probably my biggest nervous wreck.
Week.
Yeah, and like that, like before modern history, my sister came in the morning and she was there, and I found all of these notes that one of her friends had given me. I only found them like the night before or the morning of, but I was like, it'll be great. And so I just like sat there just like crying for 2 hours, and my sister was filming me, and I was like, I'm in an emotional state, but also like I was fine at the same time.
Why was she filming you?
Just because she could. She was sending it to the friend who gave me the notes just to have a little giggle at. And she was like kind of like reading the like all the essay plans that I'd done. She was reading them back with me, and I was just like, oh, this is great. But then like I got in the car, and I think Mum must have driven me to that one, and so she was talking about, I think she'd had to lead like a devotional thing at her work that morning, and she was like, oh, this is like, we had to talk about my favorite Bible passage, which is Philippians 4 for her, and so she was just talking about it, and she was like, thankful, like being grateful, and so she was like, today I'm thankful that, I'm here and able to drive you guys to drive you to school, and that this is the last time that you have to do history. So then I was, able to say back, I was like, well, I'm thankful that even if I fail this exam, God's still gonna love me, and so it was just kind of like that. So yeah, I think it was definitely helpful though that I grew up in a Christian family like that. You were saying that you didn't, so I imagine that going through those stressful times was like a lot easier, because I was like, even if I would forget God, my family wouldn't and they wouldn't let me. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Just really quickly before we move on from modern history, I have a distinct memory of I was very similar to both of you in the learning as much content as I could right before the exam.
Yeah.
Which just is not the way to learn.
Definitely not the way to learn. In saying that, one of the things I got to school and I'm like, okay, I still don't know a whole section of the syllabus, and it was like this big battle that in World War II, and I sat down with a mate and was like, bro, can you just talk to me and tell me the battle? And it was so fresh in my mind that it was one of the questions. And I wrote a 4-page thing, and I walked to him. I gave him a hug afterwards. It was like, you saved me, thank you. Like, it was that kind of. I had learnt. I had nothing about that in my brain until that. Anyway, it was that was a really good moment. I was pretty stoked with that.
I walked into the exam and I was feeling a little bit more confident after my 2 hours of crying that morning.
Yep.
I was like,
you let all the emotion out.
Yeah. I was like, wait, no, I actually know this. And I had like some of my friends send me essay plans and stuff. So I was like,
sick.
This is good.
Yeah.
And then the question, like for one of the topics, one of the questions was on like the last dot point of the syllabus, and it was like the most obscure thing, and I was like, what is this? And even though I didn't really know the other one, I was like, well, I know the other one more than I know this question, because you get the option to choose. So I was like, guess we're doing this. So it was okay. It was like, but I was also like, oh well, everyone would have struggled as much as me with that one, so it was fine. But
speaking of struggle though, and like we know that God puts us through different trials to be able to grow closer to Him in faith. I've got 2 questions for that. It's like, first of all, do you have any study tips for people that are listening? There are things that you learned. So they would have been hard, but there would have been things that you would have also learned. You're like, oh, I won't do this next time, or if I have to study again, this is what I would do. And then answer that, and then I'll ask you the next question.
Oh, I fell in love with the Pomodoro technique.
Oh, yes, 25 minutes and then 5-minute break.
And 5-minute break. And what I found that I would do is, because I would try and go on TikTok for my 5-minute break, and then I was eventually like, no, I can't do this. So I'd even during my break, leave the phone in the other room, and I would just put on music, and like not my orchestral study music, but I would put on like pop music for 5 minutes, and I would just let myself dance, or I would do star jumps, and I would just like do some form of 5-minute of exercise, so I could sit down and grind for another 25 minutes.
It's doable doing it like that, hey?
Yeah. Yeah, like you can go for hours.
And it forces you to like, I've only got 25 minutes so I can get this done, because I know that there's some research that shows that like once you get into a groove, like you want to get into that kind of flow state where you go, I didn't realize I was working for that long, but I learned heaps of stuff. But if you get interrupted through that time at any time, you have to go through, your brain has to go through the entire process again. So if you can break it up into those segments, go, I only got 25 minutes, and it puts that limit on it, you're like, at least I got it. Oh, it's only 25 minutes. But you get into that flow state heaps quicker, right? Yeah.
And I used a timer on Google, and so it kept track of everything. So I was like, I did like 84 25-minute sessions on this subject. And I'd be like, okay, well now I need to I can do like 2 lots of 25 minutes on this other subject. Because even though this isn't my next exam, but like maybe I'll be feeling a little bit stressed that I haven't done enough of that, and like I could see it. And
so, sorry, what's that technique called again?
Pomodoro.
Pomodoro
Technique.
Epic.
It's spelled exactly how it sounds. Pomodoro.
Epic.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, but also I mean like other study stuff. It just like depends what subjects you do. So I did all humanities. So I was like, just write lots of essays. All the essay plans.
How's your writing going in the exam? Did it just get worse and worse?
Yeah, I have horrific handwriting. Like I can be neat if I try, but if I'm trying to write quickly.
I just remember in the exam, like, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to read this.
Yeah, I was just like, I've had teachers tell me before that my handwriting is difficult to read, but they've never said that that they can't.
It's illegible.
Yeah. So like all teachers have still been able to read my handwriting. So I was like, this is what we're working with. But I also write a lot.
Yeah, okay.
If like in an essay, I'll write like 12 pages for each essay, even though you do like 3 essays in one. So I was like, I'm writing like 30 pages in exams. So I was like, gotta be quick. Like if it's legible or not, like you just keep writing and hope to fill up all the space. Which isn't necessarily the best thing to do. But like the ones I wasn't sure about, like I was like, surely I'll say something of value.
At some point in this 12 pages.
Exactly.
That'll give me a couple of marks.
Yeah.
What about things you wouldn't do when you're studying? But again, you wouldn't do it again.
I wouldn't have my phone anywhere near me
Yeah.
because I think I have self-control and then I don't. I'll be like,
Yeah, we like convince ourselves we have self-control.
yeah, exactly. I'll be like, oh yeah, like it's fine. I don't have to look at it, but like I would look at it. And also like on my breaks, like even before I started doing like the 25-minute thing, I'd just be like, oh, I'll do this until like 4 o'clock. And then I'll have like a break. And then on my breaks, I would just like sit at my desk chair on my phone. And I'm like, what? Like, what is
actually
that?
you're not changing at all.
Yeah, I'm like, that's no break. And also, I was really bad at being like, oh, I'll start at like 3 o'clock. But then it'd be like 3:03 and I'd be like, 3:30.
It's not 3 o'clock.
It's going to have to wait.
I
It's
know,
like
I
that
did that.
snooze button, just like,
Yeah.
10 more
Yeah.
minutes.
Yeah,
20
in my
minutes.
uni exams,
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
watch like a TV series. Like, when did I get a smartphone? At the end of uni. So it would be like, oh, I'll just watch one more episode. It's like, one more episode is 40 minutes, you idiot. You've only got 10 minutes of the time you've allowed yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, just one more episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was always... The second question I was going to ask you about around that is like you're talking about people finding things really hard. COVID made things really hard. The internet is what I want you to talk about because you're in a generation that's grown up with the internet pretty much almost since you were born.
Yeah.
You talked about not even wanting to like put your phone in a safe and lock it in there and only give your parents the code to get it out almost. What maybe talk more broadly first around your generation or like at least your cohort at school. What do you think the effects of the internet have had in terms of that stuff?
It's a really good question.
Thank you.
I mean, I think my and my school probably isn't as focused on like internet, social media vibes. Like they're like, internet we use to study. Because I'm probably like at the less studious end of my year. But I feel like, year in general, not necessarily my school. I feel like it's very distracting. I feel like it's great for resources and like
it's like any information you want, right?
Exactly. It's like you can get it at the click of a finger, which also can make it more difficult because it's like you have so much but it's
so much like choice.
Yeah, it's like you can access everything, but everyone can also access everything, so you're not actually any different in that regards. But I mean social media is just distracting and I feel like it's also just not great in general. I mean, I'm addicted to it, so I'm like I can't really say anything personally bad about it, but I'm like it's a lot, I think, just internet.
Can you tell us why?
I don't
Even from personal experience or from other people?
I mean, it's so easy to just not get off it.
Yeah.
Like
They're made to keep you on it, right?
exactly. I mean,
We were chatting about your algorithm earlier. Like,
yeah, and I feel like a lot of people know like my 18 hours on TikTok like a week is just like a lot, and then but you don't get anything out of it. It's just like
it's like dead time.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like the apps will keep you on there because it's like, well, we can sell ads against this. Like the longer we've got you on there, the more we know about your behavior, so we can sell you more ads.
Yeah, and it's like it's a lot of instant gratification because you just turn your phone off, but you're like, well, what? Now I've wasted like an hour and a half that I could have been doing something totally different, like
star jumps.
Star jumps, exactly. I could have done so many star
So
jumps.
many star jumps.
And then if you spend like that much time on social media and you go, oh, I've spent an hour and a half and now I feel like crap.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that doesn't do doesn't do any good
No,
for the rest of the day.
Because then you just like fall into like what is it the Grinch says? Just like 6 o'clock is like self-loathing. So it's just like you fall into just like, oh, well, now I need to spend another hour just pitying myself.
And then supposedly make myself better. But then you also like
Yeah.
are often like, I'll dive back into the phone to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it creates a cycle, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What about as I like to ask this question, like especially the people that have grown up in as a Christian through high school and stuff. How is it different being a woman to perhaps being like your male friends? Do you think there's some things that you, whether it's on the internet or just at school,
Yeah.
has that been harder or easier?
I don't really know. I don't know if I know the answer to that. Like
That's okay.
I don't think there's that much difference that I personally have come across. I mean, just like there's obviously society, but I don't think just society, but I don't think there's. I don't think.
So humanities,
Thanks.
such a humanities answer.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Joker.
Just like gotta dissemble the patriarchy, obviously.
Of course.
But yeah, I don't know. That's a very broad question.
Yeah.
I'm not
Just
sure.
it's the only reason I'm asking is just any observations you had.
Yeah. I mean, I probably was at kind of, because I was a leader and stuff. I probably, I was still viewed as equal to my male captain. And I don't think I was pretty active in any change that needed to happen. Yeah.
I don't mean so much as like whether you were treated equally or not.
Yeah.
More just
Experiences.
Yeah, your experiences. And it could be like, I feel like, I mean, we actually talked about this on the Shock Absorber, that there was, since the invention of smartphones and in particular the iPhone, the instance in girls of self-harming has skyrocketed, like
Massively.
gone up like 3 or 4 times what it used to be prior to that. So that's the reason I was asking, because the statistics bear out something that is slightly different between the sexes. And I was just wondering if that's, if you notice that yourself.
I mean, at school, I definitely have a lot more female friends, so I probably wouldn't be able to, properly compare.
That's usual. That's normal.
Yeah.
Pretty
And,
normal.
I think definitely, a lot more of my female friends would be more open about any of their, mental health struggles. And, I have, a handful of male friends that talk to me about it, but, I know that there's a lot more of them that struggle, but wouldn't actually say anything. So I feel while it might happen more to all the chicks, I feel like they're also going to be the first ones to open up about it.
It's perhaps it might be visually more happening to girls, but it's definitely happening to guys, perhaps in a different way, but they're not going to talk about it as much.
Yeah, because one of my best friends who's a guy, he kind of struggled with a bunch of stuff by himself for a long time before telling anyone. Whereas my friends that are girls will be they'll have one thought and they'll be oh, this is it. This is straight away. I was this has just happened to me 5 minutes ago. Whereas before any of my guy friends, I mean, I've had one in particular reach out to me, but it was that was 6-12 months in the making where he hadn't told anyone. So yeah, that's kind of a difference in that. But yeah, I don't necessarily know how that would be affected by social media. I think there is a lot kind of that's being spread about oh, it's fine to talk and reach out and stuff. My guess is that's just kind of the algorithm is putting that more on chicks' pages. I feel a lot of the fun little pretty Instagram infographics are pink and swirly and flowers. So I mean that's obviously also the only things that I see because of the algorithm. Yeah. Evil algorithm, but yeah.
But also the algorithm,
the
algorithm picks up all the things that you're interacting with, and then tries to give you more of it, right?
Yeah.
You like one little infographic and it's game over.
It's one motivational be brave, be you, and then it's just it's that for the next 6 months.
Does that help? Does that help seeing that stuff for you?
No.
Yeah.
No. It makes me giggle. But I do have a couple friends that'll send it to me. So then when I see ones like that, I have to send it back. Yeah. So then by the moment that you interact, sending it to someone, it's that's all. That's end game.
That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is it end game?
Well, because he's now stuck in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're
He's
stuck in,
that,
and now I have
that
to,
bit of, and so now I'm
Yeah.
getting all this motivational stuff thrown at me. Like I liked one like business motivational speaker dude. He like said this thing. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, and I liked it. And every other business motivational thing I got, I was like, oh,
God.
this is outrageously, It was
You
not
just feel
enjoyable.
so motivated.
I was so motivated
Business.
to make my bed. Like
Yeah.
it was most of it. Most of it was like make your bed in the morning,
Yeah,
which is very
Yeah,
I
important.
actually find that's,
But when
that's a big time
That's a big
thing.
thing.
I wish
Yeah,
I
yeah.
knew
Oh,
that
it's-
when I was younger.
It's really
Yeah.
excellent, but like
It's like you get something done right at the start of the day.
Yeah.
The only problem is when you're married, sometimes your wife isn't out of the bed, so I can't make it when she's in it. But
can't relate.
yeah,
And-
not yet.
Yeah.
Mm. What about so looking forward?
Mm-hmm.
You want to do something as a leader, I'm guessing, whatever field that's in.
Yeah.
Where would you like to go? Where are you thinking you would like to go? Perhaps not as a career, but also like at uni and stuff like that.
Well, I'm looking to study law.
Following your dad's footsteps.
Yep, everyone in my family. So
Mm.
my dad, my grandfather, my cousin's doing her last year of law next year. My sister's doing law in the year above me. Anyway, so I think of doing law, surprise, and not 100% sure what uni I'm going to go to. I've got because I want to do a double degree, but I'm actually still deciding what the double degree is going to be.
The other part of it.
Yeah, the other half, only 50%. I've actually
UNSW is where they always do double degrees, right?
Yeah, yeah, but I'm like, UNSW is like my third, but I'm like, do they actually offer either of the things that I'm looking at? Like, not really.
Do you have your HSC results?
No.
Okay.
No, we don't get them until January.
Well, it only finished 2 weeks ago.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying you're confident of your results, though.
Well, there'd be early entry
yeah,
and stuff.
So I've got early entry to my top 2 courses.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
You're a bit of a beast, but anyway.
so I'm
good
just
job.
like,
Yeah, you're in already. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm confident in my ability to at least go to those 2 because I've got them.
Take like law and everything out of there. What do you want to do with your life? What would you like? To do?
Oh, who knows?
It's okay because I didn't know when I was 18 either.
Yeah, I'm gonna vibe.
Just gonna lawyer up.
Yeah, I'm just gonna vibe with
Suit
it.
up.
Yeah, you're gonna be like Suits. Have you ever watched Suits?
Yeah, I've watched Suits' commercial, and like
As
that's
they sold out. Is that what you're saying?
no. It's more like the commercial litigation side of things.
Oh, okay.
wait,
Well,
it's more what?
Like the commercial litigation.
No, before. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
no.
it's like. More
if you're in,
Wait, as in, so sorry, this is the specific law that they're practicing is
Yeah,
commercial.
yeah,
Is that
yeah.
what you meant? I thought that was just this dig. It's like, that's a bit commercial,
that's
Joel.
way too commercial for me.
I look at real law.
Boston legal is much better.
I look at law and order only.
Oh no, I say this now, like watch me end up in this field in like 30 years. But, like I would rather not end up doing all the business side of things because that just does not appeal to me at all.
It's also what your dad works in that field a lot, doesn't
sorry,
he? Yeah.
sorry, father.
Sorry, father, if I have
Sorry.
sinned.
Just sounds so.
Also, if you're in Suits, have you ever watched this?
Yeah.
They slam files onto the desk all the time.
Yeah.
I watched there's a 45-minute supercut on YouTube of them just slamming files onto the desk
That's
all the time. It's
amazing.
really, really funny. Dave, if you're listening, can you chuck that in? Because it's so funny. They're like, they always come up with a file and go, you're not going to like what's in that. And they're like, what is it?
I have actually done that. I did like work experience in Utah. Like it was just like a week. And so we did a decent amount of filing, like along with all the fun stuff. And so like
It's most of the job.
What
though, right?
what fun stuff is there in being a lawyer?
Oh,
Anyway?
like you get to like go to court and sit in on mediations, and I
Heaps of fun stuff.
I reviewed a 2-hour security footage of this person falling over from every angle. I had to like write notes from every angle. It was like that was a great day. It was thrilling. I was like, wow, look at this. But yeah, like me and like there was one other person from my year that went with me, and so when we had our filing things, we got our own desks. So we just
Awesome.
like slam them down.
Did you
on
do
the
it to
desk.
each other? You're like, and they always go, and they go,
Yeah.
what's that? And you're like, you're not going to like it. And that's the basis of the entire, like the premise of the entire episode. It's
Yeah.
always like,
You're not going to like this
you're
one.
not going to like that one.
And then that's it for the episode. It's
Yeah,
it's what's
yeah.
in that
that file. Yeah.
And funny enough, like if they're just shooting it, it's just like just a file full of paper.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it won't have
there's
anything
nothing
on it.
on it.
No.
Yeah.
Except
Just-
maybe the
it's just-
script.
Yeah.
It's just got like a red confidential stamp on it. Like,
That's all you want to be. That's
Yeah.
why you want to be a lawyer. You're just
Yeah,
like, I want to be.
Stamp things.
that's,
Glorious.
that's the career for me. But you know, I feel like I'm just gonna figure it out.
Mhm.
Gonna vibe with it.
It's a good way to do it. You love the word vibe, by
I
the way.
do
don't
love
you?
the word vibe. I was like, yeah, I say it too often.
Yeah.
But I don't know how else to explain it. It's
Yeah,
the
no, that's
vibe.
legit.
It's
Yeah.
a vibe.
Yeah.
It's the Marbo, it's the Constitution, it's the vibe.
Put that in there too, Dave.
Yeah.
Very
Summing
quickly.
up, it's the Constitution, it's Marbo, it's justice, it's law, it's the vibe, and no, that's it, it's the vibe. I rest my case.
It's just the vibe.
Just
It's
the
the
vibe,
Marbo.
That's law at its finest.
Yeah,
That's
Dennis
all.
Denudo.
Yeah.
Like when he gets angry at the photocopier. That'd
That's
be
gonna-
you.
Aurelia, it's
You're
gonna be
gonna
the rest
throw
of your
files in
life.
the photocopier.
Oh,
You're not going to like this photocopier.
oh,
Like, step that.
yeah. Oh.
Any more questions, Eve?
Photocopier with a stamp.
Have you got any more questions?
I don't think I do. I think I'm. Yeah, no, I think that's all I got.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm. We'll wrap it up. Wrap up the chips. But I'm been greatly encouraged, really, by your confidence in you being a Christian, and as a result, the leadership that you're bringing in spaces that probably haven't had that such leadership is really, really cool. So, and also your impact on people that would have been in that Christian lunchtime group would have been like, this girl and the other people like who are leading this group stood up for me for being a Christian, and I think that's really cool. So
Cute.
I'm massively encouraged by that. The last question.
Actually, before we do, I'm just going to jump on that.
Go.
And I know you don't like compliments, so unlucky. But as someone who is like, so I've been, for context, been Aurelia's youth leader for a long time, and the guys in her year are actually the year I've brought through youth, and so I've been your leader for a long time now, and it's been really cool to see you grow in your confidence and in your ability, and you've always been really good at it, but like, yeah, it's been really cool to see that leadership, and you talked about your motive behind that leadership being wanting to serve people, and that's been really beautiful to see, really consistently. So I've been really encouraged by that. So I just wanted to jump on the encouragement bandwagon
That's great.
Thank you.
while we got you here.
There's a final question that we have started to ask people on the Chip Lunch podcast is, and granted you are only 18, but what would you, at any point in your time, where would you go back to and talk to your younger self about something when you reflect on it? So it could even be during the HSC, or it could be when you're younger. What do you reckon?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm so old as it is, so much advice. Maybe just like me. Well, we can just go like beginning of high school. Failure. There we go.
Okay.
It's fine. It's okay. We're allowed to fail at things. Try them.
What didn't you want to fail at?
Oh, anything.
You just so you wouldn't try stuff?
I mean, I would try things, but if I wasn't very good, I would just kind of stop.
Yeah, like give up on it?
Yeah, I'm just like keep it. I mean, yeah,
Or keep working on it?
yeah.
Mm.
Do it for the fun
Yeah.
times. Yeah.
It's interesting where we get to a point where like I watch my kids grow up and they're happy to fail in a lot of the things. But as we get older, we're less likely to want to do that.
Gets
Yeah.
a bit scarier.
Yeah. Which is weird, right?
Yeah, because it's like, like trying out for a sport team. It's like if you don't get in, which I often didn't because I do a lot of things in school. Sport is not one of them. But it's like nothing bad actually happens.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like what's the worst that can happen?
yeah, like something like that.
Yeah, because like
Probably.
even like when we were kids, we just like, we had to start walking. So we like fell over like multiple times.
Yeah.
And I think we like lose that of like, we've got to, whether like learning an instrument or playing a sport, like you've got to put in the practice to
Yeah.
get better at it.
Yeah.
And it's funny how we lose that sometimes.
Okay.
But the other thing is like, as an example of you, and we actually talked about it on an episode of different shock absorber. We talk about being confident Christians. If we can be confident Christians, we can be more likely to be okay with being family, because we know that foundational aspect that you're talking about of being a Christian is like, like the worst thing that happens to us is that we die.
And that's great.
And where do we go after we die as a Christian? We go to
It's
heaven.
only an upgrade.
Yeah. So anyway,
it's pretty good.
thanks for being on Chip Lunch.
Thank you for having me.
That's all right.
It's been very cool.
Well, let's wrap up the chips. And which camera do we look
with the
into? This one
file.
down here?
Yeah, that one.
This one. This is Aurelia, guys. She's awesome.
Hi, Aurelia.
Yeah, hi, Aurelia. Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, everyone. We always like to finish up with a one-way. You know what a one-way is? Jesus. So much enthusiasm with that one. Should we try again? Ready? And do it to that camera, okay?
Oh, this camera.
Yeah.
Okay. There we
All
go.
right. Thanks for the Chip Lunch. One way.
One way.